So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Provincial Office webinar. I hope you're all safe and well. My name's Andrew Rydell and I'm the Provincial Deputy Grand Secretary. So to today's session. Several years ago, Baines Lodge was rather struggling. It's now thriving. To talk us through the transformation and some of the ideas that they have, I'd like to welcome Tony Farrow, Ryan Modlin and David Thomas.
So I'll just kick off. As Andrew suggested, the reason the three of us, myself, David and Tony, have come onto the call today is just to talk a little bit about the history of Baines Lodge over the last 13 years or so, and why specifically Andrew's asked us to attend this session. Back in 2007, so just 13 years ago, Baines Lodge was down to 11 members. Most of those were over 70. We suffered, I think, if memory serves, 4 or 5 deaths over a 12-month period. A couple of resignations as members moved to other parts of the country to be closer to the family as they reached later years. So at a committee meeting, our 3 surviving founders, who can be seen on the picture on the screen, one of whom was then Assistant Provincial Grand Master Brian Wright, offered the 3 junior brethren of the lodge a couple of choices. That was to hand in the warrant and we could all go our own separate ways and join other lodges, or option 2 was to take on the responsibility of taking the lodge forward, considering all the effort they put into in the lodge's first 45 years since it was founded in 1962. And suffice to say, we're here today because we chose option 2. And we continue to try and reflect on the faith that Harry, Brian and Dennis, you can see that in us. So David, do you and Tony want to pick up this?
Yeah, thank you. Well, good afternoon, brethren, and thank you, Andrew, for inviting members of Baines Lodge along to do this presentation, shall we call it today. First and foremost, we're not here today to gloat on what we've done or any such thing. We're here to talk about how we took on the challenge, because to us, the lodge, even though we were down to 11 members, and as Ryan quite rightly said, most of those were over 70, it meant something to us. We've always agreed that at your initiation, you're either bit by Freemasonry or you're not. And if you're not, it doesn't mean you're not going to stay in Masonry. If you are, it takes hold of you and you want to do justice. And we wanted to do justice to the founders of Baines Lodge. We knew we were in a terrible situation at the time. Brian Wright did stand up at that meeting and say, we do think, I spoke to Dennis Toffs, and he said, we think we probably have to hand the warrant back. At which point, John Lee, who sends his apologies today, by the way, he's in court, he stood up and he said, in no uncertain words, he didn't use exact words, he was quite stronger, he said, you're handing nothing back, Brian. When we came out of that meeting, Brian came up to us and said, I was hoping and praying you would say that. So what they did, they handed the lodge over to us for all intents and purposes. But what they did say, you take on and you run the lodge, and we will support you in whatever you try and do for this lodge. And that's what we did. We took on the main offices. One went into the chair, one took over as DC, etc. And this hasn't been a success story from the day one when we took over. We made many, many mistakes. And if you and your lodges are struggling and you come up with new ideas, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's how we learn. And we made lots of mistakes. We instantly put our heads together, myself, Ryan and John, and thought, right, the main priority is to get new members in. Well, that was a big mistake, in all honesty, because as the good Dr. Oliver always says on most of our summonses, be careful who you recommend. And that was perfectly, 100% true, because we started to invite anybody. If we had a game of darts with them at the pub one night, they showed an interest, they were in. And it was literally like that. And it was totally wrong. And I think if Andrew looked through the retention records for lodges in the province, I think Baines would be very, very low on that list, certainly for between 2003 and 2010. We brought a lot of people in, but unfortunately they didn't stay because we didn't go about it in the right way. We didn't make sure first they were right for Freemasonry and Freemasonry was right for them. So we did work incredibly hard, the three of us. We were supported, but there were times for many years where the three of us were holding 2 or 3 offices in the job, in the office, in the lodge at the same time. But what we've tried to do is to continually evolve. And Ryan is very, very good at this with his business background, professional. He knew how he had to try and bring businesses on, and that's what we use, sort of things like that for the lodge. So the last few years, we sat down and we thought, right, what type of people do we want to attract and how are we going to attract the right people? And we came up with a new criteria. And now for anyone to join Baines Lodge, certainly a gentleman, not talking about joining members here, but for a gentleman to join, they have to attend 3 or 4 social events with their partner, because without their partner's backing, they won't stay in Freemasonry. So in essence, they have to attend 3 or 4 social events, which again, in essence, that means it's a year, because we have a very active social side, which we will come on to, and I'm sure Tony has a lot to say about that as well. But they have to attend those, so it takes a year. And by doing that, we firmly believe that it gives a chance for that gentleman and his wife or partner to get to know us, to get to know a little bit about Freemasonry, and we get to know them. And only then will they be considered for an interview and proposing into the lodge. And that way, we find out we find out if they are right people for Freemasonry, and just as importantly, they find out if Freemasonry is the right thing for them. So we're not rushing them. But the social side of things is another huge, huge part of Baines. We have many, many social events, and they are always focused towards families attending, partners, and as many children as they can as well. Because as we've said, and many people have said this, you have to have the backing of the families with us. They have to feel included. And if you've got a couple of gentlemen who've attended a few social events with their wives, what you hope for in the end, they will turn around because their wife has had such a great time at the social events that she turns around and says to her husband, why are you not a member of this yet? And then you know you've got the right people with the right backing to join your lodge. But it's not easy. There is no easy fix. As we said, we were 11 members in 2003. I think we stand, Ryan, I think, is it 33, 34, round about there? But we don't for one moment consider ourselves doing well or safe, because the moment you start to consider that, you're in trouble again. You have to continue to evolve. You have to continue to be interactive. And we've taken on the social media side. We're very fortunate. We've got Ryan, John Lee, Tony Farrow, who's fantastic with the IT. We are openly and actively now very, very busy on all forms of social media and the contacts we make, and it's just wonderful. Now, at the start, when we were trying to get members in, we realised that another big benefit would be to have joining members from other lodges, not to poach them from other lodges, just hopefully they were in a position financially where they could be a member of 2, which as many of us are. So what we said, and this is I'm going to quote John Lee here, and it's one of his sayings, and I always quote it. To get a visitor, you have to be a visitor. So from day one, when the lodge was handed over to us for the running, myself, John and Ryan, we made an active decision we would go out and visit lodges on a regular basis. And that's exactly what we did. We went out to 4 or 5 lodges every month, the 3 of us, and sometimes a couple of other members came along with us, and we went every single month. And then what happened, because we made great friends in those lodges, they turned around and started visiting us every month. Now, you don't need to be a genius to work the maths out. If we did that with 5 lodges, and then those 5 lodges reciprocated and brought 3 members, our numbers were swelled at the meetings every month by at least 15. And over a period of time, some of those brethren decided to join us because they liked our ethics, they liked the way we worked and the way we thought about Freemasonry and what we wanted to do. So it's vital to try and attract not just new brethren, not just gentlemen, but to try and attract joining members as well. But you will only get that by going out and doing the footwork, going out there and visiting these lodges on a regular basis. And let's not forget, for people say, well, it's hard work going out so much over. But for myself, John, Ryan, Tony, David Edwards, we're out all the time visiting a lot of lodges. And it's the best thing in Freemasonry. It's a chance to go out and visit a lodge and see how they work and sit there and have a fantastic night, make new friends, rekindle old friends. And most importantly, you don't have to do anything when you go out, which is a rare treat for us. So basically that's what we did, and that's what we are working on. Now, Tony came in, we had some very, very important people join us because we were good friends, but we were hard-working Freemasons. None more so than Tony Farrer, who's with us today. He came in when we were dying. We really were. He came in at that time. He took on the role of secretary. He's since gone through the chair and he's gone back to secretary. Although I do have to say he's not as good as the secretary who was in the chair whilst he was out, which was me. So I think what I'd like to do now is to hand you over to Tony, and Tony can tell you about his experience of when he joined Baines Lodge and how he developed that and how he came to understand what we were all about as individuals and as a lodge. And Tony's one of the main men in Baines Lodge now, without a shadow of a doubt. So can I hand you over to you, Tony, and if you'd like to pass on your thoughts.
Yeah. So obviously, as Dave has mentioned, my situation's a bit different to Ryan and Dave, as I wasn't around in the dark days. I used to attend as a visitor, but only as and when I could. I can remember when I was in the chair of my other craft lodge, South Shore, I used to attend Baines back then, and that was probably when they were doing okay, but that was back in 2002. But then, as David said, you know, through deaths, etc., they got themselves in a bit of a mess. I was asked if I'd like to join and become the secretary. I mean, there was no, you know, they didn't mix the words about it. They approached me. I was friends with John and Dave, not so much with Ryan in those days, but I'd known David and John for a long time, and they came to me and said, look, we're in a mess. We need someone to join us and become our secretary. Would you be interested? And at first I was a bit, do I really need to take it on? But when they explained to me, you know, the predicament they were in and what they were trying to achieve, I took it on board and joined. I joined in, I think, the November, and took on the role of secretary in the December at the installation. I think the thing I found straight away was the fact they were very willing to listen, to take advice, to take on board advice that was given. And as we all know, and I know it's a bit of a cliche in Masonic terms, and we all hear it, where people say, well, we've always done it this way, we're not changing. But straight away from Baines, it was, you know, if I came up with something that needed to be done differently, they embraced it and readily took it on board. The other thing, of course, is they were more than happy to encourage me in the role, in the secretary's role. And it was good because by me taking on the secretary's position, it freed up Ryan, who had been doing it in previous years, to concentrate on doing something else in the lodge to develop it. Where I think they were all wearing multiple hats, which made it different. I think straight away I enjoyed the social side of it because, as has been said, they really encouraged socials. And I think at the time we had a guy called Bill Singleton that was going through the chair, or was about to go through the chair, and he really loved his socials. He's suffered a bit of ill health of late, so he's not been attending as much as he was. But he was more than happy to encourage it, and sometimes, you know, out of his own pocket, to encourage us to hold certain social events. And the ones that stand out the most is the children's parties we used to have, which used to get the kids involved. And obviously, once you get the kids involved, you get the wives involved, and that just you know, prompts attendance and more people to join. We also started to have Valentine's socials, which again got the ladies interested, and we made sure at each of the Valentine's socials we really pushed the boat out, because it was something for the ladies to have to come out to a Masonic event on Valentine's night. So we made sure that we did everything we could to make the occasion memorable. And then we started to get to the point where we were struggling to fit everybody in that wanted to come. You know, we were getting our socials were getting sold out. So word was spreading about how entertaining they were, how enjoyable they were, and more importantly, how much the ladies were enjoying them. So I think that's key to, you know, the success of the lodge. Someone's put in the chat. They asked the question about do we make people? Is it a rule of the lodge that people have to attend our social events? Well, no, it's not a rule of the for members, but I think the point Dave was trying to make was if people want to join, or initiates, we want them to come to the social events to see what we're all about in advance of them joining and in advance of them becoming members, because it is an integral part of the lodge's makeup, is the social side of it.
I think that's a good question, Tony, if I can jump in there, because I've just moved on to the next slide.
Yeah.
Which kind of answers that question in another way. How do members contribute to our success? And you've alluded to it already, talking about Bill and some of our other past masters in the lodge. Ritual was really the foundation of the lodge for Baines, because we had a lot of good ritualists, not least Brian Wright and Dennis Tofts. But actually, that's not the only focus. All members are able to fulfill some duty to further the lodge's objectives. We've got a little slogan in there that there are no backbenches in Baines. Everybody has a role to play. And that does include active participation in organising, supporting and attending the social events. So whilst it might not be a rule as such, it's absolutely a fundamental part of our lodge's identity. We work very hard in the lodge room, but we also play very hard in our social events. And for a brother or a gentleman to fit into Baines Lodge, they have to be really agreeable to that side of Freemasonry. It's the only way the lodge can be a success. And admittedly, that's not for everybody. And if that's the case, you know, we perhaps might not be the lodge for them. But there are some bullet points there that we do expect members to be actively participating in our events, to give the time, not just money, but to give time to local causes. So in the last couple of years, we've volunteered as road marshals for the local village gala to help close the roads. We've raised donations for the local food bank and delivered those. Our worshipful master and others have contributed, particularly during COVID, to some of the charities that have needed volunteers to go around and collect and deliver donations and shopping and so on and so forth. And really, our lodge is more than just a monthly meeting, and that's really the essence of Baines Lodge. We're very close. We talk to each other almost daily, if not in person, on social media, and we encourage our members to take on additional duties maybe not collared roles, but take on additional duties that help manage the lodge. So that might be contributing to managing our social media. And we're looking to develop other roles such as assistant secretary, assistant treasurer, so that we have some kind of continuity planning in place. So that perhaps answers that question. I don't know if Tony or David, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, you're right. There's no easy fix. If your lodge is struggling, there is no easy fix. What there is an extremely large amount of hard work, and you cannot give up. If you love your lodge and you want to make it a success, you cannot give up. We created a very small snowball back in 2003, and we started pushing that very small snowball, and it got bigger, as snowballs do, and it got bigger and bigger. But there were many occasions when that snowball rolled straight back at us and nearly knocked us over. But we met it head on. And we met it head on with even more hard work. And you keep pushing it and your snowball will get bigger and bigger. But you have to keep pushing it. And that means you have to keep working hard. We have a great friendship and love for each other in Baines. And you only need a small group to set that off. And if you let other people, by going to visit them and then they come to your lodge and become good friends, they feel the love. They feel the love when they see you, and you know it's there when you walk up to somebody and you walk into a lodge room and you don't just shake hands, but you give them a cuddle as well. You've got to build on it, and you've got to keep working hard and never ever sit back on your laurels and think we're okay now, because you're not. And even more so in this day and age, with this unprecedented time that the world and Freemasonry in particular is going through, and it's going to go on for quite some time, you've just got to keep working hard. And if you love your lodge, I would just urge you to get together and work as hard as you possibly can. The strategies we have talked about have worked for us. The early ones didn't. But the ones that we've implemented now are working very well. But we won't sit back on that now. We will continue to have our regular meetings and talkings where, what can we do next? What else can we do? Yes, we've done well, but what else can we do? What can we go to the next level, or even to maintain the level we're at? You know, because it's easy to slip back very, very easily. So you have to keep talking to each other. You have to keep wanting to succeed and keep taking your lodge forward. And the only way is the hard work, interaction, and the love that you all have for each other and for your lodge. And that should be enough to make you think. Is that my time up?
Yeah, that was a cue, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you have to use that love that you have for your lodge and your brothers and take it forward, because the worst thing, and believe me, I wasn't known as a Grim Reaper around the province of West Lancashire for nothing. I had the sadness to have to attend many, many lodges and chapters where I was on duty that night when they shut down and handed their warrant back. And believe me, if you can get away from that, avoid that at all costs, because it is a terrible, terrible night when it happens, and you don't want that to happen to your lodge. So keep working, come up with strategies, and never give up. If you get a knockback on a certain thing, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. If you get a knockback or something happens, it's part of history. You can't change history. You live with it, you deal with it, and you move on. And that is what you must do. And that is what we would urge you to do with all of your lodges, whether you're successful at this moment in time or struggling. One strategy in that respect fits all, and just it comes under the strategy of work hard for your lodge.
I think the thing for me that's been, in addition to all of it, is the communication. I mean, I know we hope, well, those of us that are still working, we hear it every day in our working lives, but it's certainly been the key to what we've achieved. Ryan set up for us probably 3 years ago, before the boom that we're all experiencing now with Zoom and Teams, etc. a business app called Slack, which at the time was new to us all. I think apart from Ryan used it in business, but we started using that app then. And it is obviously, we don't use it for videos, we just use it for short messages. And now, as has been said, we use it every day. And there's different channels in it. So some of us just chat together. There's a main chat where everybody can talk. And just getting everybody involved has made every member of the lodge who wants to, obviously everyone's not as chatty as everybody else, but those who want to can have a voice, can give us their opinion. Questions are asked, should we do that? Everybody's got an input into it, which makes them feel as if they belong. And more importantly, it makes them feel valued. And the more they're valued, the more they're going to continue to contribute. And the other thing is, and it was one of the opening things that Ryan mentioned, was the lodge was handed over to David, John and Ryan. Now, that seemed a bit extreme, handing it over. And I think it was the circumstances that made that happen. And I don't think it's what every lodge has to completely hand over the reins to the younger brethren. But you've certainly got to take on board what the younger brethren say and what they want and try and accommodate them. And not everyone will raise to the challenge, but it only takes a couple of them, a couple of the younger members. And clearly, you know, we are talking about if your lodge has got younger members who want to be involved, and unfortunately not everyone's in that position. But if you have got some younger guys in your lodge who have shown some initiative, who want to take things forward, please don't stand in the way. You know, help them, assist them, nurture them, and help them bring on and keep your lodges going. And the final thing I was going to mention, if I can remember what it was, but it's gone again. So I'll let Ryan fill in while I remember what I was going to say.
So
Right,
really just
Ryan, can I just say one thing on that, but leading on from Tony there? When you've got to support all of your brethren in the lodge, whatever age they are. The older brethren have got to be prepared to change and support the new ones with the new ideas, because you have to be modern now. You have to be thinking things. And what you all have to remember, and this is what we did as well, your opinion on how something should be done in the lodge is not always right. Whether you like it or not, it's not always going to be right, and it won't always be with the majority. And you must always respect the majority of your lodge and keep moving forward. Don't get in a huff with them. Don't get upset. It's just a majority of a lodge may vote on something different. And then when that happens, again, it's happened, it's history. You have to move on with it. And you have to give your 100% support to what your lodge wants to do and decides to do. Even if it's sometimes not what you might particularly enjoy or what you think is right, it's the way it is. You've got to be 100% support behind each other to succeed. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, it's just really just to wrap up on that final slide there of, you know, how we've built on success and how we continue to improve. And then real keys, I think, for success of any lodge is, you know, we have a strong and consistent lineup of social events, which include all family, wives, partners, children, and extended family, parents, grandparents even have attended social events, and really getting out into the community as a group of people, as a group of men, and again with our families, to help out community organisations to be more visible in the community, as Freemasonry once was 100 years ago. We can only be successful if people are actively involved and show commitment, which is why we expect that commitment of people when they join, both initiates and joining members. And all new members have to make that commitment. And with that happening, the strength of the lodge continues to evolve. That's really what we wanted to share with you, our story, which, you know, it's not over. As David said, we've made a lot of mistakes, but we have come a long way in 13 years, and we continue to evolve.
Can I just say, there's I don't know if you all noticed in the group chat, if you've clicked on there, Neil Ward has just put a comment in there, a message to everybody, and it just quite simply says, it's quite obvious Baines Lodge has passion. And do you know something, Neil? That hits the nail right on the head. We have a real passion for Freemasonry and for Baines in particular. And it's a passion that burns within inside, and that's what drives us forward. And that passion will never go away. And that is why we will never, ever see Baines Lodge fail. Whatever challenges come our way, we will meet them head on, and we will work hard, and we will keep pushing that snowball, and we will keep taking Baines Lodge from strength to strength. Thank you.
When I forgot what I was going to say, the reason I forgot what I was going to say, because I was trying busily to find a link to our YouTube channel, which I've just found now, and I've put in the chat for everybody. That's another way we've been doing stuff. We've been making short videos, sticking them on YouTube, and just opening the lodge up, opening up what we do. So if you want to have a look at some of the things we've been doing, there's some short videos. Obviously, if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get notified when we post new videos. And as we've said, communication. If any of you out there want any advice or help, give us a shout. We're all contactable. You can get our email addresses from Ryan, and hopefully once we start, we open up and we get back into normal Masonic activities, you can come and see what we do firsthand.
Thank you, Tony. I've just got a couple of questions, actually, and then we'll can open it up to everybody else. One of the things which I'm sure will be going through lots of people's heads was when that 13 years ago, when the lodge was kind of effectively handed over to Brian, David, and John. How experienced were you Masonically into, where were you in the lodge on the ladder, and at what stage in kind of Masonry had you got up to at that point?
We were all Master Masons at that point, Andrew. Don't think none of us had been through the chair. So we were all Master Masons at that point. We'd done a lot of work on ritual. Dennis Toft, who we referred to in the presentation, was a keen ritualist, and had me, John, and David. He dragged us all around the Fylde Coast presenting lectures from the Green Book, for those of you that are familiar with that. So we were very experienced in terms of ritual, but certainly not experienced Masons by any means. I think David went into the chair a year later.
It was that year, right? About 2007. John and I went in March, and John went in December. But basically, we went at the time when he handed it over. We were all Master Masons.
That takes a great deal of vision from the elders of the lodge, if you don't mind me calling them that, to hand it over to effectively what would be seen in most lodges as new green junior brethren.
Absolutely, Andrew. But I think the difference was, as Ryan quite rightly alluded to, Dennis had taken from day one when we joined Masonry, from our initiations, he took a grip of us, and he taught us what Masonry was about. And our passion comes from Dennis, and it was from day one. So as Ryan again said, we became very, very good ritualists, and that gave us an awful lot of confidence. So Dennis and Brian Wright, they knew we were very good, and we were very confident because they taught us. They taught us their way. So I don't think they had any inhibitions they had no worries about doing that with us, because they knew, as I said at the start, they said they would support us in whatever we tried to do. So they knew that they were there as a backup anyway to guide us if anything went wrong. But yes, you're quite right. It was it's probably unheard of in another lodge for it to have happened like that.
Do you think that that's effective? If a lodge is worried about its future, it's got the same people, it's recycling lots of people. It has a few new people in it, but it's been supported by a small core of people who are going round and round and round. How important do you think it is to instill that Masonry 101 in the younger people, so that actually you could feel confident about doing what the elder statesman of Baines Lodge did at that point. It seems as though that's been the key to the whole thing, enabling
Yes.
people to educating people to a point where actually, even though they are, in inverted commas, just master masons, you have the confidence that certainly Masonically they'll do the right thing by the lodge.
Yeah, well, this goes back to a point I made when I was talking earlier about it's not an overnight fix. You're not going to fix everything in 12 months. And this goes back to bringing these new gentlemen coming into Mason, when you need to look after them and nurture them and put them with the right people to make sure they enjoy their masonry, as I did, as Ryan did, as John did. And then they come through and you know that they're learning their masonry the right way, about the ritual and what's the expectations within Lodge and within masonry in general. Too many younger people who come in now, or not necessarily young, but join new gentlemen, but they're left to their own devices. They're not guided, they're not nurtured. And that's where a big problem is. There's a huge problem in masonry. So this isn't an overnight fix. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take you a few years until you've got the right people in place. If you've got the talent in your lodge now, that's great. You need to support them and try and get them doing more if you can. But it's a long game, this.
Just to develop that point a bit further, do you think it's because Baines now fundamentally attracts a slightly different kind of person, or have identified a very key type of person to join the lodge that has made it successful? Or is it because when somebody does join the lodge, you put that work in to ground them Masonically before introducing them to more complex parts in masonry?
Probably a combination of the two, to be honest, Andrew, because we mentioned it during the presentation. When we first started trying to change things, we brought a lot of candidates in, and as David quite rightly said, our retention rate was awful, quite frankly. Our initiation rate was fantastic, but we didn't keep many of those people. And what we've almost stumbled upon, with a little bit of skill and design in there as well, is a formula that works for us, for our lodge, in terms of the character and the personalities within the lodge, and how we like to practice our Freemasonry. So we've stumbled and hit across a bit of a formula for the right type of person, both as a joining member and as an initiate. So the theory for bringing initiates into the lodge is, by the time they come to initiation, they know all the members already, and the members know them. So there's no strangers once they've been initiated. They're familiar with everybody. The family and their extended family is familiar with the lodge. The wives are friends, and they know what we're about. And that's really worked for us in the last few years. So we haven't lost any initiates, touch wood, for the last, I think, 5 or 6 years now, because we've stumbled across this formula that's worked. Learned very much the hard way. We have beaten ourselves up a lot over it, but ultimately we rushed candidates in, and it proved that they were the wrong people. But the foundation for the success, as I put in the slides, is joining members, people that have visited us and thought that's the kind of Freemasonry they want to practice, and they've joined us. And as David said, not to poach them from the other lodges, or other lodges they're members of, because they've all maintained, or most of them have maintained the memberships of other lodges, but to complement their mother lodges, because they seem to get something different from Baines as they might do from other lodges.
So just thinking about that, obviously with joining members are sometimes, depends on the state of the lodge, obviously, in terms of how they're integrated into the offices within the lodge. And sometimes if there's been a lot of initiates, it can be quite difficult to, in inverted commas, squeeze joining members onto the ladder to do work. How has Baines managed that process?
In some respects, I won't go as far as say we've recruited or signed members to fulfil certain offices, but that's certainly the case with Tony, and he shared his experience with you. But one of the keys to success for us is not rushing our initiates. Very, very slow progress with them. Obviously, the opportunity is there for those that are slightly more eager. But what we have, again, found in the past is rushing people through too quickly. It's become quite overwhelming. So there's always been areas and things for people to slot into. But again, as in the slides, what we've tried to do is create new roles in the lodge. So looking beyond the collared offices and looking to things, we were desperate for years for a decent almoner, and we ended up with 2 for the last 3 years. And the work that the almoners have been doing has been absolutely fantastic. But of course, you can only have 1 collared almoner in the lodge. And I know you've been at our installation meetings, Andrew, in the last couple of years, where we've pointed the finger at the assistant almoner during the installation ceremony, just to flag up that, you know, it's more than a one-man job. So what we've done is we've created many roles within the lodge so that everybody has a part to play. Tony mentioned Bill Singleton. By his own admission, not a great ritualist, but an absolutely fantastic organizer of social events. So everybody's been able to find a role to play, even if it's not a collared or official role by the Book of Constitutions.
Do you think the increased number of social events has helped Baines? Because a lot of lodges, you know, simply have one ladies' night a year and maybe something at Christmas.
That's been the foundation of it, Andrew.
Absolutely.
It's all started from that, because visiting members have come to social events and enjoyed it, but more importantly, their families have enjoyed it, the children, the grandchildren, the wives and partners. And as David said when he was talking over the slides earlier, we've had members join us because the wives have said, "Why haven't you joined this lot?" And the wives have been pushing men into joining. It's been absolutely crucial, and the social events continue to evolve. So 2 of our meetings every year now are social events. We meet on the second Friday, which means in February, it's generally there or thereabouts around Valentine's Day. And in May, we have a gourmet dinner night, which has just become a feature of the lodge calendar now. A summer ball, a ladies' evening, and then loads of informal stuff as well, like bowling and curry nights and such like. It's absolutely essential, not only for the members, but it's essential to bring candidates in as well, so they have the opportunity to meet people and see the kind of characters and personalities that they'll be mixing with.
I think on the socials, we must just mention the contribution that John's made to our socials. He's not here today, he's working. But John Lee will, and you probably all experienced it at some point or other, when we're having a social event, we always give the members of the lodge a blackout window so they can, you know, reserve their own places. And then John will think nothing of sending 250 emails or text messages to people he knows, seeing if they want to come to our summer ball or ladies' evening or Valentine's night. And it's that kind of commitment, or, you know, just, you know, and it's not, those of us that know, it's not a big thing to send 250 emails these days or text messages, but it gets the message out there, we're doing something. And as it's been said, it snowballs. And once people know, oh, Baines said, oh, that's all right, I enjoyed it last year, I'll go again. And that just encourages more and more people to go. Now, clearly, if everyone did it and everyone was having a social every weekend, it wouldn't be as special, because we can't all go to every social that happens. But it's just by trying things different. Like I say, the Valentine's event, and I think one of our most successful socials has been the summer ball. We have it in the summer. We've been very, very fortunate with the venue we've used, and most importantly, we've been the most amazing luck with the weather. Every time we've had a summer ball at Singleton Lodge,
There's a comment from Jonathan Selko on the chat just saying we were all doing the same things in the 90s, but unfortunately a number of my friends have either left or have passed away. To what extent is it? I know that one of the comments that we get, certainly in my lodge, is, well, I've already invited all my friends. It's down to the younger guys for them to invite their friends now.
Well, what I would say to that, Andrew, is go and visit some more lodges and make some more friends then. Get out there. There's lots of lodges we won't have been to visit. Get 2 or 3 of you together and start regular visiting, and you'll pick up some joining members eventually through it. Just backtracking just slightly, Andrew, sorry for that, but talking about the social events, one of our best attended ones for a non-Masonic one, we meet every summer. We go to China Red in Polton, have a Chinese banquet. We've had, I think I'm right around, we've had up to nearly 50 there before, haven't we? Something along those lines.
Completely taken over the restaurant at times.
Yeah, and you don't have to do the numbers. We've only got so many members in Baines. And this is that one night, what happens on that night, the gentlemen, all the brothers, we go to China Red, and the ladies all go to another restaurant, and then we all meet up afterwards. But we've had 50 plus at China Red, and we might have only had 15 to 20 of the male brethren from our lodge that are there. So that means we've got 40 plus brethren from other lodges who've been to many of our social events and been to Baines many other times. And they go out of the way and think, well, yes, that's in my diary for the summer. So they're enjoying it. So if you're having a social event, make sure people enjoy it when they come, and they'll just keep coming back and back. Sorry for just rewinding a bit there.
No, I mean, I think one of the issues that a lot of lodges face, and I'm speaking a little bit from first-hand experience of this, with a broad age range in a lodge. How have you balanced making sure that the socials that you have are accessible to all your brethren, as opposed to just the younger ones?
Well, let me take you back to what we said when they handed the lodge over to us, and what John Ryder and myself decided to do. We decided to go out visiting and to make friends. Yeah, build friendships. We didn't say, right, well, at the time I was about 40, 42. John and Ryan were in the 20s, but we didn't put a criteria saying, right, we've got to go out and meet some people between 25 and 40. Went out to make new friends, whatever their age is. Be it in the 70s or 80s, 60s, it didn't matter. There's no age thing involved with it for us. And no, we went and made those friends in all those other lodges, and they started coming back to us. They didn't think, oh, I'm not going back. John Lee's inviting me, or Ryan Modlin. They're only 30. I'm 70 now. Why would they want me to go? It wasn't like that. There's no age in Freemasonry for us. So it doesn't matter. Age should never come into it. And if you're 75 or 80 and you're still capable and you feel you're still capable and you want a job, come to Baines, we'll give you a job. It should be no discretion.
There's a question from Steve Williams on the chat about where do Baines recruit new members from? You've got a big social media presence. You've mentioned the YouTube videos and the kind of those which are very much aimed at the local community. to what extent, what's the kind of ratio between effectively relatively cold contacts to friends and relations of members of the lodge do you get?
Well, we haven't had overwhelming numbers of new candidates because of how we look at things now. So, I mean, it's an awkward one because Ryan's involved with the group membership as well and the membership pathway. And people think, and we've actually had it said, it was quite hurtful, where I think the last 3 group membership officers in the South Fylde have been from Baines. And people were seeing us having the odd new member coming in and whatever, and they thought, oh, they're the membership officers, so they're directing any inquiries through to Baines. We haven't had one single person join Baines through the membership pathway, have we, Ryan? Not one.
No, that's right. And I think, one of the key learnings we've taken over probably the last 10 years, as I've said previously, is our approach to initiates. We've had that wrong. We've had that very, very wrong. We've learned the hard way. But probably the last 18 months, 2 years or so, we're at the start of a journey in terms of a new strategy for attracting new members. So to kind of answer Steve's point, I don't think we can give you any kind of real success stories in terms of recruiting people from the wider community, but I can certainly share with you our strategy, which is all about raising our profile in the community. So I mentioned, 6 or 7 of us went out marshalling the roads for Poulton Gala last summer. We were going to do it again this summer, but of course it fell victim to the pandemic. We've done other work with the food bank. We've got other activities lined up for when lockdown ends with things like even really simple stuff like litter picking on the beach around Fairhaven Lake, things like that, where there's local community groups desperate for manpower, absolutely desperate for people to help them. And we've got a group here of 33, 34 reasonably fit and active men that are prepared to give of the time. And that's not necessarily a recruitment drive, and it's not walking around with sandwich boards on, but it's raising the profile, not just of Baines Lodge, because it's bigger than that. It's about raising the profile of Freemasonry in general. So I'd like to think we could come back to you in 12 months, Steve, with some real success stories, but I can certainly tell you we've learned the hard way and we've changed our approach, and that's how we're approaching things at the moment.
Stuart Cranage, you just want to come in for a second?
I do. I've got a couple of observations. First of all, full credit to Baines Lodge with what you've done. 100% agree, socials are absolutely our recruiting ground. 100% agree, give the future of the lodge over to the recent joining members, because they've come in. They're the people who haven't been nurtured perhaps the way we should have done. They're the guys who know what's going wrong. And we might not agree with what they say as an experienced Freemason, but 9 times out of 10, they're right. And that leads me on to one thing, and I hate to bring this up, but Solomon, there's a lovely little podcast on Solomon called Yeah, But. And it's all about, you propose something different, and an experienced member of the lodge says, yeah, but our lodge doesn't do it that way. Yeah, but that's never been the way it is. There's no such thing as yeah, but. Get on and just go for it. But the main point I wanted to say was I joined my Freemasonry in London, and all right, the demographics are different. About 7 years ago, we were down to 10 members. Our lodge at that time was 201 years old, and we're down to 10 members. And we made a big mistake, and I'd like you all to learn by this. The big mistake we made was we amalgamated. We thought it was the right thing to do. And overnight, if you like, we got 21 members. 6 months later, we were down to 9 members. There were fallouts. There were things that people said, oh, we don't do it this way. We don't do it that way. So I think the approach that Baines Lodge has taken is 100% correct. Amalgamation is the absolute end of the road. Before you surrender your warrants, consider amalgamation. But consider all the things that Baines Lodge had done before. And the other final point I'll say, and we also focus, by the way, on socials, and I agree exactly with what's been said. Get the partners along, get them to meet other partners. And what we found in the London Lodge was the wives were getting together, and they weren't even members of the lodge. The wives all knew each other. Oh, we see you again at one of these socials. And exactly like I think you said, David, is they're saying, why the hell aren't you a member of this great thing? You know, I want to see more of these people. We're missing out on socials because you're not a member. But the one thing that really swung it for us was when we interview, and I'll use the term interview, when we have a chat with a potential candidate. Our past masters normally hold that, and they hold it quite formally, and they've got a set of questions. All right, and some of them are mandatory. Do you believe in a supreme being, etc., etc. They had a list that was 200 years old. One of the questions on it was, can you afford to buy your wife a ball gown for the ladies' weekend? Most of the guys they were interviewing didn't even know what the hell a ball gown was. And I said to them, look, guys, why don't we say to them, if we allow you as a privilege to join our ancient institution, we will expect you to bring 2 trustworthy friends into our organization. And guess what? We interviewed one person, and he proposed within the first year 2 friends. Turned out to be very, very good friends, because when we interviewed them, we did the same. And we said exactly the same question. If we give you the honor of joining our institution, we would like you to bring 2 honorable people that you respect. And they did. And you know, I was secretary at the time. I was applying for dispensations for double initiations. And I look at my London Lodge now, that was 10 when we amalgamated, and after a failure of an amalgamation went down to 9. Our membership now is 36, I think. Our average age, and I agree, David, with what you said before, age doesn't matter, but the average age of our lodge is 42. And for those that are followers of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that might mean something. But our average age is 42, and these guys are fighting to do the working tools, to give addresses, to take office. Their wives are sending emails out to each other saying, when are we all next getting together? But our biggest mistake was an amalgamation. And I can't reinforce enough what the guys from Baines Lodge have said, and especially the viewpoint of socials. Socials are absolutely our recruiting ground, and bringing the partners on board, making sure the partners get involved is probably more important than getting the men involved, to be honest. Get the partners involved, and they will do all the work for us. They will push them rather than us pull them.
Stuart.
Thanks, Stuart.
Stuart, you've hit it on the head there, mate. Because I could feel you. I could feel your passion. And and those young lads have got that passion. I just need to clear up one thing. Can you not, when we're on a conference call like this, can you not shout out ball gown too loud? Because Paul is in the kitchen, and I haven't bought one of those in 20 years, and I've no intention of starting.
David, I mean, obviously we've been talking about Baines Lodge this afternoon. You're heavily involved with the Royal Arch, clearly, as your provincial role. To what degree do you think the principles that Baines Lodge has adopted over the last 13 years can and should be applied to Royal Arch chapters?
Now, it's a whole different playing field with the Royal Arch, because it's you can't get away from it. It's really, really struggling. We're not getting those 40 and 50-year-olds coming into it, hardly anymore. But look at the average age of the Royal Arch members. It's more senior than it is junior, let's be honest. So it's hard to organise. I mean, I take it you're all in a chapter here. When did you actually, how many social events do you have in chapters? Does anybody have any? You've got 2, Chris. Yeah. John, 2. But out of this screen here, I think out 90 people on, that's 3 people who answered, well, yes, we have social events. Yeah. So I think that is a big area that the Royal Arch can work on, because people aren't getting their enjoyment from the Royal Arch for whatever reason it be, whether they find it boring, whether there's not enough going on within the Royal Arch. You have your exaltation ceremony, you have your installation, perhaps you have the banners, you do the banners in your chapter, which we used to do in my chapter, Peace and Unity at Blackpool, once a year. And when I joined it as a junior compactor, I found that very enjoyable, but that's dropped off now. We haven't even got enough members to do that. So there's a lot more needs doing with the Royal Arch than there is in craft masonry. Craft masonry obviously feeds the Royal Arch. That's where we get our members from. So I think that work that needs to be done on that is perhaps a separate entity. I don't know if that's really the correct word for it, but the foundation's already, it should be there in the Royal Arch, but it's not being worked on. And I know that we as a cabinet in the Royal Arch, we're constantly working on strategies. We hold regular Zoom meetings once a fortnight on what we can do to change it. But again, it's not going to be an overnight fix. It's going to be a long fix, but I think chapters need to look at the social events. I know that, thinking about it with Ryan, a member of File Chapter, which was basically on its downers, and then John Lee and Ryan joined, and everybody else, yeah, but everybody joined it. And do you know what they have? They have social events. And I would say that File Chapter is now one of the strongest chapters in the province. And I've been around to most of them, and and they have social events. Just simple things like they go out tenpin bowling, or they'll go out for a meal. And that makes the Royal Arch Masons enjoy the Royal Arch again, being together, because it's just boring. I'm not going to split hairs. It's boring. If you stagnate within your chapters, and the only reason that you are stagnating is because you're not getting off your backsides as a group, as a collective, and saying, what can we do? Let's have a social event. Let's do something, and it doesn't have to be what you're doing within the chapter to create excitement and enjoyment of being a member of a Royal Arch chapter. The social, it just walks hand in hand as it does with the craft. You have to have those. Chapters have got to start looking at what they can do to make it an enjoyable experience.
Thank you, David. We're just coming up to time now. I suspect I know the answer to this, but could each one of you, Tony, David, and Ryan, could you give in a one-word answer what you think the most important thing is for the development of the lodge?
Passion. I have to do two: passion and desire.
Tony?
Communication.
Ryan?
Family.
Excellent. Guys, thank you very much for your time today. I'm sure a lot of people will take a lot away from this. Maybe, it's not something that they can translate directly into their lodges and chapters, but hopefully it's given some ideas and, if nothing else, helped inspire some chapters to go forward. Dave, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, can I just say that if anybody would like, and again, we're not blowing our own trumpet. We've worked hard. We're still working hard. If any of your lodges would like us to come along one night when we're back, when normal resumption comes in, and talk direct to your members about what we've done and how we've tried to turn it around, then we will come along. Send us the invite and we'll come along, and we will work as hard as we do for our lodge, for your lodge, to try and help you out of it as well. And I would gladly volunteer Ryan and Tony to come along with that. Somebody was waving then.
Ian Dawson's just waving. Hello, Ian.
Hi guys. Congratulations on a great presentation. I took a million notes here, which I'm taking back to my lodge as secretary. Well, I've got one. Over the weeks, we've had various discussions. One was about membership and mentoring and all this sort of thing. I'm interested in that you three have got on with the job and got your lodge up and running again. How closely have you worked with membership officers and mentors?
I'm sorry, Ian, could you repeat that, the last bit? I missed it, sorry.
You three have done a great job getting on with the job and getting things rolling. How closely have you worked with group or provincial mentors and membership officers?
The honest answer, Ian, is we probably haven't, but as David alluded earlier, unfortunately, perhaps, the last 3 group membership officers have all come from Baines Lodge. So, and I'm the most recent of the 3. So consequently, we've all been very conscious not to, make sure Baines hasn't been the beneficiary of us being in those positions. So we've benefited in as much as we've had the knowledge of the support of the pathway. We probably got wind of that before many other people did. But crucially, I think we didn't adopt the role of lodge mentor particularly quickly. And that's because the founders that we had, Dennis Toffs and Brian Wright, were already doing that. They were mentoring long before the word was even coined in Masonic terms. I'm a bit of a lodge historian, and I've got the committee meeting minutes going back to when the lodge was first founded in 1962. And I've got references in the committee meetings in 1964 from Dennis and Brian talking about championing the junior brethren in 1964. So mentoring was kind of a part of the lodge long before it was a provincial thing. No disrespect to Stuart Cranich. But no, we haven't had a great deal of involvement in that regard, to be honest.
Okay, thanks very much.
So that's not to say those resources now aren't very valuable. And I'm obliged to say that as a group membership officer, and knowing the provincial membership officer is also on the call.
Ryan, I think I've just heard, I think your taxi's just arrived.
Thank you, guys. You obviously bring a lot of energy and enthusiasm into the lodge, and there's an awful lot of talent in the lodge. But I suspect that that's because it's been bred as such, rather than you've stumbled across it accidentally. So thank you very much, and also thank you very much for the offer to go and speak to other lodges and to bring your enthusiasm to other areas of the province. I'm sure that there'll be more than one lodge wanting to tap into that. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
As usual, I'm going to just hang around, and if anybody's got any questions that they want to ask me from an administration point of view, please say free. Otherwise, I shall see you all next week.